Hey, I want to come down here and talk to you about part 4. There's a correction in my notes. I want to make sure you get this correction with it. It's this body of the notes here. It's being corrected over here, where it says part 5. All of this right here. So I'd like for you to make sure you get this correction on here with it. So the part 4 on this thing, part 4, right here. This is the part that I messed up on there, so make sure you have the right information on here. This is the first time that I'm going to talk to you about class with it, and I thought this would be an appropriate time for you to understand to approach object-oriented programming with this thing. All this time you've been doing what's called procedural or structure programming with structures and procedurals, top-down, sequence, and all that stuff with it. Object-oriented programming it's a different approach to programming with it, and this is a wonderful way for me to show you how a short type of snippet code that I want to talk to you about with this thing. So let me. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to connect to my my drawing tablet here, my Wacom tablet here. So let me take this kind of like this paint, this canvas that I have right here, and I'm going to use this metaphor for you to kind of think of. I hope you know what a cookie cutter is, right? So everybody's familiar with a cookie cutter, something, anything that is basically is, for international students, if you've never seen a cookie cutter before, it's kind of like a little template that you can punch out cookies while, let me just search a few of them for you to see. So I'll just type in Google cookie cutter with it, and we'll use image on some of this stuff with this. So let's say I pull up this image right here. This is, I'm just going to grab something just off the cuff that has some well, I thought I had some cookie cutters in there, but something along this line. Can you see this? Can you see this metal tin? Or let's take a look at, or any one of these things for the discussion with it. These are cookie cutters. So you roll out the dough and you stamp them, and they give you the shape, and you bake them and all this stuff with it as well. So I want you to have an image of what a cookie cutter is. So let's say you have like a star shape of a cookie cutter in this thing. So that's my cookie cutter with this thing. And you have also a flat piece of dough, cookie dough, okay, which is a little powder sugar ingredient mixed together. And you take this, you flatten it out, and you stamp this with this cookie cutter right here. And that process you get is a cookie. It looks like this, okay? Now, this is nothing that's too odd and ordinary. You should know for the same. But here's what I'm trying to say. You, as the programmer, you are writing what's called a class. This is what's called a class. Think of this as your template, your blueprint, okay? So your class is like your blueprint. Things that you would create, and the blueprint has to be perfect. Okay, so this is kind of like your blueprint. When you build a house, you have blueprints that's on a large sheet of paper with the same. The material to build a house are the bricks, the mortar, the wood, and that creates the object. What we call is instantiate the object. This is your object. Okay. So, where am I going with this thing? So, this process right here, when you get to Java, when you get to any programming language with this, we call this object-oriented programming. It's about this. It's about how you create this. But when you trace this back here, it's about how you write your class. In your class, you're gonna, if you have me for 1437, you will learn how to write what's called a UML. Your UML will consist of a table which has the class name, okay, whatever the class may be. You will have private attributes or fields. This part right here, from here to here, is what we call fields or attributes. Alright? I'm writing with a mouse. My drawing tablet's not working with it. So you will have a name of a field, and you have a data type of that field on here. And it's represented by a hyphen, like it is a private. Okay, I'll talk to you about what that means. In your fields, you have what's called private, public, or protected. For the most time you're going to be dealing with in 1437 for Java or C++, you most likely, as a learning curve, you will start out as private. We'll talk to you more about it. Down here is what we call what's called the methods or functions. Methods are the way how things are accessing to, either you get to write to it or you read from it. So you have terms that you're going to hear me explain in 1437. You will hear what's called getters. Okay? Getters and setters. So getters and setters. Getters are the ones that returns. Setters are the what that you write to. So think of it like that. Or you hear what's called, another term is mutators. Or assessors. So these are synonym terms that you're going to hear people are going to be using with it as well. So this is getting into deep on chapter 3 and 1437 with it. But for the purpose of the discussion, I wanted to talk to you about the class that you're going to be dealing with. And in this class, that when you create in this class, you're going to be creating what's called a rectangle class. Okay? In this rectangle class that you have right here, imagine this is a rectangle class, it will have fields. Your fields are made up of what? Your width and your length. And for the most of the purpose in your methods, you can write a field, a method to it, a function that actually writes to it or read from it, or calculate, take the width and the length, multiply it together to return what's called an area. So all this is what we call as a method, or a synonym for that is what? Functions. Now, this entire diagram that I have for you, this entire diagram that I have for you in this right here is what's called a class. It's made up of fields or attributes in here, okay, that you're going to hear me talk about with this thing. So as you go through, you're going to see that the UML, this is what's called UML, Unified Model Language with this thing. This is across the board with this thing. So you're going to be writing this class, which is this right here, this. And when you instantiate, is what we actually call, you make an instance, instantiate, instance, instantiate. This is harder than I thought. Okay, you're making is the object in this whole thing. Okay, you get that? Can you hang in there with me with that? So, you know, that's my chicken scratch for now with it. Okay, so here I'm going to actually minimize this. I have to keep a time on this. Maybe pause.